So here we've got the hardtop clamped down to the car. It's important to close the doors properly and make sure that the windows are fully raised, and then mark a pencil line down the rear edge of the glass onto the side flange, and repeat this on the other side. So the next job, using a straight edge, is to mark a second parallel line 20mm away from the first one. And so after marking the second line with a pencil, just mark a neat radius at the top so it flows into the edge of the flange. So the flange across the top will have already been cut to the correct depth. It's just the side flanges where the excess needs cutting away. This is the area that needs tailoring to the individual car. So now, using a thin 1mm cutting disc on an angle grinder, we can cut away the excess from the flange following the forward pencil line. Remember to wear eye protection and a mask to protect from fiberglass dust. So now we've got the excess fiberglass cut away from the flange, we can see when the hardtop is clamped back onto the car, the cut edge is nice and parallel to the back edge of the glass. Now we can work on the flange thickness. So at this point the flange will still be too thick to be able to push a section of header rubber over the edge. So using a short section just for testing purposes, as can be seen here, the U section needs opening up so we can slide the bulb section of the rubber between the glass and the flange. As we can see here, the closure pressure is far too tight. The bulb is too compressed. Now, among the parts supplied in the DIY kit will be a short section of spacing rubber that we can see here. This is a neat trick for getting the flange thickness exactly where it needs to be. Now, when the door glass is pressed up to the rubber normally, there will be some play in the glass. So as you can see here, the glass is being pushed out to replicate the pressure it would be under if it was in contact with the normal header rubber. And then using a pencil, mark up and down this flange. Remember to keep outwards pressure on the glass. This is where the outside of the flange will need grinding down to create the correct pressure for the header rubber. So the hatched area marked in pencil here shows the amount of fiberglass that needs grinding away in order to taper the flange inwards slightly and leave just enough on the edge for the header rubber to sit on nicely with the correct closure pressure up to the door glass. This needs grinding away with a flat disc on an angle grinder. The amount of fiberglass that needs grinding away from the outside face of this flange will vary from car to car. It all depends on the door and the window alignment. If after grinding away this outside face, the flange is still too thick to accept the header rubber over the edge, just grind the inside surface down a little. You're looking for a finished thickness on the edge of the flange of around 2 to 3 millimeters. At this point, both side flanges will have been ground down to the correct thickness. The hardtop can now be clamped back onto the car, and a short section of header rubber can be test fitted over the flange. Make sure it's fully seated, tap it with a rubber mallet if necessary, and then the final test is to close the door properly and test the electric windows. Make sure they glide over the rubber. As we can see here, the closure pressure is nice and even along its full length from top to bottom. No tight spots, it's nice and parallel to the glass. Good even pressure all the way along the rubber. The electric windows need testing up and down just to make sure they're not snagging the rubber. We can see here we've got lovely pressure on that rubber. Perfect. Just as it should be. If the rubber is still too tight, it might want to drag and pull backwards. If that's the case, grind a bit more down off the outside flange. The same test viewed from inside the car. We can see nice even closure pressure all the way up the rubber. No tight spots, no snagging or dragging as the glass is raised and lowered. Just glides over the rubber nicely. This is probably one of the most difficult jobs, one of the most important though as well. If you get these side flanges right and the closure pressure nice, you'll have a really nice weathertight fit of the hardtop. So now these have been tailored to the car, we can move on to the next stage, which is setting up the tag panel.